The history of Zimbabwe was marked by decades of racial segregation and inequality, which came to be known as apartheid. The system of apartheid was created by a white minority government in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, which sought to maintain their authority over the black majority population. Over the years, apartheid in Rhodesia led to widespread human rights violations, economic disparity, and social unrest. The origins of apartheid in Rhodesia can be traced back to 1890, when the British South Africa Company began to colonize the area. The settlers, mainly white Europeans, were attracted to the area's rich mineral resources, fertile land, and potential for agricultural growth. In order to protect their interests, the settlers imposed strict racial segregation policies that relegated the blacks to the lowest rungs of the social hierarchy. The early years of Rhodesia were marked by brutal violence and oppression against the black population. In 1893, the Ingwenyama, king of the Ndebele people, Lebengula, was defeated by the British and a treaty was signed. However, the British reneged on their part of the agreement and began to take over more land, displacing the local population. This led to a series of rebellions by the black population, which were brutally suppressed by the white settlers who were determined to maintain their hold on the country. In 1923, Rhodesia became a self-governing colony of the British Empire, but racial segregation remained at the forefront of government policy. The white minority government implemented policies such as the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, which divided the country into separate areas for black and white populations. This policy forced the black population into rural areas where they were subjected to poor living conditions and limited access to basic resources such as water and education. The country witnessed a return to violence in the 1960s, as black Zimbabweans began to call for their independence. In 1965, the white minority government declared a unilateral declaration of independence, defying British sovereignty and plunging the country into a protracted period of civil war. Over the next decade, the government intensified its policy of racial segregation by restricting the movement of blacks, limiting their voting rights, and forcibly removing them from their homes. In 1979, the white minority government finally agreed to hold democratic elections, marking the end of Rhodesia's apartheid era. The elections saw Robert Mugabe, a prominent black nationalist leader, emerge as the victor. However, the transition to democracy did little to address the structural inequalities created by the apartheid system. The legacy of racial segregation continued to shape the country's economic, social, and political landscape for decades to come. Rhodesia's apartheid system had profound implications not only for the country but also for the wider African continent. The policy of segregation had a destabilizing effect on neighboring countries, leading to an influx of refugees and increased violence along the country's borders. The international community also played a role in ending apartheid in Rhodesia, with sanctions and boycotts from countries around the world forcing the government to reconsider its policies. Today, Zimbabwe is a vastly different place from the country that endured apartheid for so many years. However, the effects of that era continue to be felt deeply, with persistent economic inequality and political instability contributing to ongoing social unrest. The legacy of apartheid has also left its mark on the country's international reputation, with Zimbabwe still viewed by many as a cautionary tale of the dangers of racial segregation and authoritarian rule. Overall, the history of apartheid in Rhodesia is a stark reminder of the enduring legacies of colonialism and racial inequality. Although the country has made significant strides in recent years, it is clear that the wounds of apartheid continue to shape the country's social and political landscape. By confronting its past and working towards a brighter future, Zimbabwe can help ensure that the legacy of apartheid does not define its future.